What if you just kept the music on the whole time while I taught? Wouldn't that be pretty cool? You think it'd be pretty sweet? Or would that be really annoying? I don't know. All right. The money market. Supply and demand for money. Yeah, so the money market is quite simply the supply and demand for money. So we talked about money yesterday, right? Money is essential, right? We need money as a medium of exchange to make trade easier, because without a medium of exchange, we're going to have to barter, and bartering has problems, right? The double coincidence of wants is obviously very, very problematic, and then some things cannot be split, right? So we use money, right? Money not only serves as a medium of exchange, but also gets us prices, which is the idea of a unit of account, right? It gives us the ability to measure value of different things. And then money, lastly, also allows us to store value, right? Money allows us to store the ability to purchase to a later date, right? So money is very, very important. And then we also talked about the different measurements of money. We got M1 money and we got M2 money. That's probably the most important thing that we talked about yesterday. Things that you're going to see the most. So remember, M2 includes both M1 and M2, right? M2 includes both M1 and M2. What? Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? Yeah, right here. There it is. Just remember that. Don't forget, right? So a lot of the questions on the problem set yesterday, and let me know if you have questions in Google Meet later on. I asked you a lot of questions about, if someone takes money out of their savings account and puts it in their checking account, right? M2 would not change, right? Because M2 also includes M1. So we're just moving money from here to here, right? It's not going to change M2. That would obviously increase M1. And then vice versa, right? If we take money out of someone's checking account and we move that to someone's savings account, right? That would decrease M1, but simultaneously, right? It would not change M2. I just noticed a mistake on here, people. It's gonna throw me off. I'm not gonna lie. Oops. It's got like the auto number thing going. We'll keep it a number because number 2 is the most important. Checkable bank deposits, also known as demand deposits. All right. Anyway, so that's what we did yesterday, right? We just talked about money. And the last thing we talked about yesterday was the types of money, right? We have fiat versus commodity money, and obviously, the history of money for the most part, right? Money was a commodity money, right? Money was like rice and seashells and gold and silver and things like that. It had other value other than simply its use of money. Now, most modern day money is all fiat, right? And what fiat money means is it doesn't have any intrinsic value. Not only that, it's not even backed by anything, right? Which is pretty crazy. So I still need to show you guys that film about money. If I don't get to it today, I'll just put the link in it. I hope most of you guys watch it. I know most of you guys probably won't, but it's a really, really good video, and it really, really changes your perspective. And it talks about a lot of things that we're going to talk about later on Thursday. So maybe I'll save it for Thursday. All right, so anyway, let's get to the money market, right? So what is the demand for money? What is your demand for money, right? What is your willingness and ability to want money? Some of you guys are like, it's endless. There's more. All I want is money. It's the grind, right? All right, anyway, it says, at any given time, people demand a certain amount of liquid assets, money, right, for 2 different reasons. Remember we talked about the word liquid yesterday, or liquidity? Liquid means you can very easily make a transaction, right? So money is, like cash, is the most liquid asset you can possibly get, right? You can take cash and at any place be able to buy something immediately, right? Even like debit cards in some places aren't accepted. Money is definitely the most liquid asset you can possibly have. So why do people need money? People need money for 2 reasons. The first reason is transaction demand, right? You need money. And people, when I say the word money, right, we talked yesterday about like money takes on many different forms. Going forward here, right, just so you don't like make any mental mistakes and you keep it ceteris paribus. When I said money yesterday was like cough drops, right, when I was in basic training. But when I say the word money from here on out, just think about cash. Think about currency, like cash and coins. All right, if I say the word money, okay? All right. Anyway, so why would you need money, right? What are the reasons for that you might need money? The first reason you need money is obviously to make everyday transactions, right? Like every day for the most part, at least in like an adult life, you have to have money to make a transaction, right? You have to, buy gas, right, to get to work, right? You have to, you have endless bills, coming through every day, probably, right? You need money to buy food, You need money for a lot of things, right? People need money in order to make transactions. Okay, so when we talk about the shifters of money demand, right? If you're like, man, I don't know if that would change the demand for money, well, ask yourself, right? Based on that change, is that going to require people to have more or less money in order to make everyday transactions? In other words, if prices go up in the U.S., right, you're going to need to carry more money on person, right? You're going to demand more money. You're going to want to hold more money in order to make more transactions. Everything around you is now higher in price, right? That's the idea. So ask yourself, right? Do people need more money now at the result of whatever scenario I give you in order to make more transactions? And if the answer is yes, right, then you're going to increase the demand for money. If the answer is no, then you're going to decrease the demand for money. But yeah, people need money to make transactions. And the second reason people demand money or people want money is money is a great asset. Money is the least risky asset you could possibly have, right? The least risky investment you could possibly have, right? Now we talked about, inflation obviously reduces your purchasing power, right? Inflation, like if you're holding money, inflation is not the best thing, right? But you're talking, 1 to 2% losses. But if you're not holding cash, right, or you don't have money in your checking account, and you have money in other investments, right? Investments are generally risky, right? I mean, other than your savings account, but like if you have money in the stock market, that's obviously very risky. If you have money in a house, right, your house price could go down, right? Generally, housing prices go up, and generally houses are a great investment, but there's risk involved in that. If you put all your money into like buying a bunch of cars, and hopefully those automobiles go up in value, right, and you try to sell those off, or you put all your money into, I don't know, just other ways of investment, right? And again, not investment as like capital goods, right? Investment like personal finance, right? Money is safe, right? There's nothing that's going to happen to money other than like if the U.S. government like dissolved, right? Or we had like insane inflation, right? But generally, people like to hold money because it's not risky. It's not risky. Holding money is good, right? And people like to hold money because they know exactly how much, not wealth, I don't want to use that word, but how much money they currently have. Like being fully liquid is that idea. So people demand money for transactions, and also people demand money because it is is less risky than other investments. So my next question is this, right? What is your opportunity cost of holding money, right? Because we obviously want to hold money, right? We want money for transactions. We want money because it's not risky, but there's an opportunity cost of that, right? There's an opportunity cost of holding money. What do you guys think your opportunity cost is if you hold money? When I say hold money, I mean, carrying cash and coin on person, or money in your checking account, perhaps, right? Money in your checking account. What is the opportunity cost of being liquid? What do you give up by being liquid? Does that make sense? Being liquid, like having full money, like money's not tied up into anything. You can make transactions very, very quickly. What's the opportunity cost of that? Let's see if anyone knows. No one's talked in the chat in a while. I don't even know if I'm still here. What is the opportunity cost of holding money? What do you forego? Or you guys remember what opportunity cost is? What do you forego by holding money? Luke, my man, he says you're not earning interest. That is the opportunity cost, right? If you're liquid and you're holding cash, or you have money in your checking account, the opportunity cost, what you're foregoing, you're giving up the opportunity of using your money to make more money, right? You're not making interest, right? Instead of putting your money, like holding your money or having money in your checking account, you could otherwise have your money in a savings account, right? Be making some interest, albeit small. You could have your money in the stock market, perhaps, right? You could have your money invested into a house. You could have your money invested into like a certificate of deposit, a CD, or a mutual fund, or whatever, right? What other vehicle of making money there is out there, right? That's the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is earning interest, a rate of return on your money, right? Yeah, you could that's the idea. Like you want to use your money to make money, right? So yeah, the interest you could be earning from other financial assets like stocks, bonds, real estate, etc. There's so many ways to invest your money. And then again, every time you invest your money, there is risk involved in that, right? There's risk involved in that, but you'll do so, right, if you think the benefits outweigh the cost. right? You put money in the stock market because you think you're going to make more money than you're going to lose, right? The benefits exceed the cost. So that's why people generally invest. And I don't want to use the word invest, right? Because we know the word investment in this class means businesses buying capital goods, right? But I mean, I don't know what other word to use, to be honest with you. But yeah, the whole point is if you're holding money, the opportunity cost is making money, right? Putting your money into some sort of interest-bearing account and making more money. So it says, what happens to the quantity demanded of money when interest rates increase, right? What happens to the willingness and ability to want money if interest rates go up? Do you want to hold more or less money if interest rates are higher, right? Do you want to be more or less liquid if interest rates are higher or interest rates go up, right? They're greater than what they used to be. Do you want to hold money? Do you want to be liquid? Do you want to have all your money in your checking account or all your money in your purse or wallet, right? If interest rates are high in the economy. The answer is no, right? The answer is no, because if interest rates are high, that means your opportunity cost is high. If interest rates are high, that means you could be, with your money, instead of being liquid, you could take your money, put it into some sort of high interest-bearing account, and then, once that investment matures or it gets to the point where you want that return on investment, right? Then you become liquid at that point, right? If interest rates are high, your opportunity cost is very high for holding money. People don't want to hold money if interest rates are high. So interest rates are really low right now, right? So there's no real, issue with holding money, right? It's fine to be liquid right now. But if interest rates were high, say 3, 4, 5%, and I'll talk about what interest rate am I talking about, but people are going to want to put money in savings accounts. People are going to want to put money in CDs. People are going to want to put money in other interest-bearing accounts. So that's the idea. There's an inverse relationship. When interest rates go down, your demand for money will be greater, right? It'll be higher, right? Because there's no incentive to put cash into an interest-bearing account if you're not really gaining any interest, right? So when interest rates are low, like they are right now, there is not a lot of point of putting money into an interest-bearing account because, again, people want money for transactions and people want money because it's less risky, especially in these times, right? The economy is kind of all over the place. So people are hesitant, right, to put money in the stock market and things of that nature, right? So they want money as an asset, right, because it's not risky, and then they want money to obviously make everyday transactions, right? There's no opportunity cost really if interest rates are low. So I hope you guys can see, where I'm going at here, right? There's an inverse relationship. There's an inverse relationship between the interest rate and the quantity, the amount of money, right, demanded. Your willingness and ability to want to hold money. And again, when I'm talking about money, I mean cash money or also money in your checking account, liquid money, okay? So again, when interest rates are high, right, you do not want to hold a lot of money. You do not demand a lot of money. Then obviously when interest rates go down, when they're lower, right, there's less opportunity costs. You're going to be more likely to hold money, right, for transaction demand and for asset demand, right? When interest rates are low, again, another reason you'd want to hold money is sometimes it's good to be liquid, right? Because if the economy does have a huge downturn, right, your money's not tied up into a house or anything like that, right? The value of what you're holding doesn't go down. And if you're liquid, when that happens, right, then you can buy a house when housing prices are at its all-time lows. Or if you're liquid when the stock market goes all the way down, right, you're liquid, right, you can get in the stock market, when the stock market's down, right? So that's the idea. When interest rates are low, there's not a lot of opportunity costs for holding money, right? And you want to hold money, right, because you want to be liquid to invest when the time is right, etc., right? So that's the idea, an inverse relationship. So the demand for money, sometimes it's like D, like M or MD. The demand for money is always downward sloping. Our money market is going to be graphed nominal interest rates on the vertical, just current interest rates is what nominal means. It's very important, though, that if you actually graph, right, you write nominal interest rates. I didn't do it on my graph today, I'm not going to lie, but because another graph we're going to learn about in Unit 4 is going to be real interest rates, the loanable funds market. So make sure you know the difference between nominal and real. We're going to label the money market nominal. Later on, the other graph we're going to learn about in this unit, we're going to label that one real, okay? And then obviously the quantity of money, just simply like the amount of money, okay? So that is money demand, inverse relationship. Hope that makes a lot of sense. So obviously, just like any other curve that we're going to learn about in this class, we're going to move it around, we're going to shift it, and just like always, an increase is going to be shifted to the right, and a decrease is going to be moved to the left, right? And if you can't remember that, people, hopefully you can remember that Mr. More is always right. More to the right, less to the left. I don't know, right? But increase is always going to be to the right. So here are the three shifters of money demand, the determinants of money demand. You got changes in price level, which I've already talked about a little bit. You got changes in income. Then you got changes in technology. All three of these will influence the demand for money. It'll increase, it'll shift the demand for money. Then obviously if interest rates change, this is going to cause movement along the curve. If interest rates change, we're not going to shift the money demand, right? We're just going to figure out, all right, how much now, or how much money are people willing and able to hold now, right? Do they demand now? So those are the three that are actually going to alter money demand. People, today's an important day, right? Because today is the only day we're really going to talk about these money demand shifters. The only time you're really going to be giving scenarios that alter money demand. And then starting tomorrow, everything's going to be focused on money supply, right? So what I'm trying to say is these are usually pretty easy, but students get these wrong on tests sometimes because like we don't rep it a lot. We don't practice it a lot. So, yeah. All right, so what's going to happen to price level, income, and technology to increase money demand, right? So there they are. So think about this, right? If we increase price level, right, or not we increase, but like prices go up, right? Prices go up in the economy. We have inflation. Prices for all goods in the economy rise, right? You are going to demand more money at all interest rates. Your willingness and ability for money has to increase because if prices increase, you're going to need more money for everyday transactions, right? If the price of gasoline goes from 2 to 4, you're going to need to carry more money on you, right? You're going to either on you or in your checking account, right? So you can swipe a debit card. You have to have more liquid money if prices go up, right? If food prices go up, right? If your rent goes up in price, if everything goes up in price, right? You're gonna demand more money in order to make more transactions. Okay. Don't know how else to explain that one, right? Prices go up, you're gonna need more money to live, right? You're gonna demand more liquid money, more money in your checking account, more money on person. Number two, if you have an increase in income, right? So generally, right, if incomes rise, maybe due to an increase in aggregate demand, right, unemployment decreases, and incomes, national incomes, right, in the U.S. rise, right, people are going to buy more things, right? You know, assume that most goods are normal goods, right? We know that some goods are inferior goods. If people have more money, they actually buy less things, but most goods are normal goods. So if you have an increase in income, right, your demand for most goods increases, right, because most goods are normal goods. If your demand for most goods increases, you're going to need more money in order to buy those goods. So an increase in income is always going to result in an increase in money demand. All right? And then last but not least is a decrease in technology. This one's kind of vague, right? It depends, right? It's not always going to be true, but generally, if we lose technology, people are going to have to fall back more on cash, right? If ATM machines are banned, right, you're going to have to carry more money on person. You're not going to be able to have, you're not going to be able to put money in your savings account. If credit cards are banned, or if credit cards don't work, or if internet goes out, you're going to have to carry more money on person, right? So that's the idea is if we lose technology, ways to buy things other than using cash or money in your checking account, right? Like buying on credit. If we lose the ability to buy on credit, you're going to have to demand more liquid money. You're not going to be able to borrow it in order to make those transactions. So I hope that one makes sense. Decrease in technology. Okay. Any questions? All right. So obviously, alternatively, right, we flip everything around. You know, if prices go down in the economy, everything gets cheaper, then why would you want to have a lot of money in your checking account? Why would you want to have a lot of money in person, right? Or on person, right? You don't need to hold money. If prices go down for everything, right, you're going to take extra money that you don't need to live, put that money into some sort of interest-bearing account instead, and you're going to demand less money at all interest rates. If prices get cheaper, you need less money for a transaction demand. Number two, if you have a decrease in income, right, generally, again, most goods are normal goods. If you have less income, you demand less goods, right, just market demand. So if you demand less goods, you're buying less goods. If you're buying less goods, you don't need money to make transactions. It's going to require less transaction demand if your income goes down because you're going to buy less things. And then lastly, if we have an increase in technology, right? So, I don't know how to get it to this point, but like, when the ATM machine was invented, right? You could put money in a savings account, make interest, and then if you needed it, right, you just got to find an ATM, withdraw money, boom, right? So you don't need to hold money. If you need money, you find a way to get money, right? So you will hold less money, at the advent of the ATM machine. When credit cards came out, right? You don't need as much money, right? You can just buy on credit, and you can put cash, liquid money, into some sort of interest-bearing account, and hopefully you have enough cash to pay off your bill at the end of the month, or you just borrow and run it up, right? But credit cards, things like that, allowed people to not have to hold as much money in their checking account or in their purse or wallet. So, with technology, just think about, do people need more money to make transactions? Yes or no, right? A lot of this is all transaction demand. It's the easiest way to sort of navigate, how do I change money demand? All right, let's get some answers in the chat. Let's see if you guys are awake. Let's see if you guys are following me, right? And then I'll talk about money supply very briefly, and then I'm going to do some graphing practice with our new document camera. I'm excited, people. All right. Says the amount of money that the public wants to hold in the form of cash will. What do you think? And no one wants to be the first one, right? And don't copy the first person, right? But what do you guys think? The amount of money that the public wants to hold in the form of cash will. What do you think? 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 Lydia's first. Takes a shot in the dark. Kennedy's next. We're thinking C right now. But is the answer C? The answer is C, people. Good job. The answer is C. The amount of money that the public wants to hold in the form of cash will decrease if interest rates increase, right? Because if interest rates increase, your opportunity cost of holding cash would increase. It's more costly to hold cash if interest rates go up, right, is the idea. So the answer most definitely is C. All right? And that's why money demand is downward sloping. All right, next let's talk about the supply for money. The supply for money is going to be very easy, right? The supply of money is set. It is fixed. The Federal Reserve controls it. So what is the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve is basically part of government, but it's not part of government, but it is part of government. It's really complex. And the reason it's not supposed to have any sort of government influence, right? It's supposed to be nonpartisan, right? No political bias whatsoever, and much like the Supreme Court is supposed to be. And it's supposed to just simply measure the state of the economy, right? If we're in a recessionary gap, we want to speed it up, right? We want to lower rates. If we are in a inflationary gap, right, we want to slow the economy down. We want to raise interest rates, right? That's the goal of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's goal is to stabilize the economy, to do all those three macro measures that we learned about, right? To promote economic growth, to limit unemployment, and to keep prices stable. That's supposed to be the goal of the Federal Reserve. But the problem is, right, the chairman or chairwoman of the Federal Reserve is appointed by the president. Now they got to get confirmed by the Senate, but they're appointed by the president. So obviously there is some, and they could get removed by the president, right? So that's why sometimes the Federal Reserve has an incentive to not do what's best for the economy, right? We talked about problems with fiscal policy. There is problems with monetary policy, right? There was a point last year where inflation rate was almost close to 3%. The unemployment rate was close to 3%, right? So that would suggest an inflationary gap, and we were reducing interest rates, right? So obviously, all the policy that we've talked about in this class, right? It works, right? But it's never like done, really, in more recent years, right? And more historically, right? It has been done more so unbiased, right? But now more recently it has not. But anyway, so that's what the Federal Reserve is, right? Or sometimes it's referred to as a central bank, right? Their job is to stabilize the U.S. economy, and the largest economy in the entire world. So generally, the chairman or chairwoman of the Federal Reserve is regarded as the most powerful person in the world because they steer the world's largest economy. So yeah, money supply is fixed, right? The Fed controls the money supply. Now I'm going to talk about how they do that tomorrow, right? Because that's what monetary policy is: changing the money supply to ultimately influence interest rates, to ultimately influence investment and consumer spending, to ultimately influence aggregate demand, to ultimately influence, unemployment, GDP, inflation, whatever, right? That's the idea. That's what monetary policy is. So everything's always going to start in the money market. But yeah, The Fed controls the money supply. They can change it. It's fixed, right? They can increase or decrease it very easily. So money supply is vertical, right? They control it, right? The money supply is fixed and they control it. It is independent on what current interest rates are, right? We're going to change money supply to change interest rates is what the Federal Reserve is going to do, and that's called monetary policy, monetary money policy, changing money supply to ultimately, influence the economy. That's the idea. So, yep, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and yeah, their job is just really to stabilize the economy. They keep people from losing faith in our financial system, right? The Federal Reserve is also called the banker's bank, right? So not only is the Federal Reserve's job to stabilize the economy, they connect all banks together, right? They're in charge of all wire transfers from bank to bank. They're in charge of regulating banks, right? Making sure banks do not do any suspect behavior, right? So yeah, there's 12 different branches or districts of the Federal Reserve. All right. Anyway, so yeah, again, the money supply is fixed and the Fed controls it. So for now, right, on your problem set, I'm just going to say money supply increases or decreases. The Fed changes it. It either increases or decreases, right? So if the money supply increases, notice what's going to happen here, right? Interest rates are going to have to fall. Interest rates are going to fall, right? If money supply increases, if you look at the old 5%, people demand $200 or $200 billion of money, and at 5%, this is how much is going to be supplied, right? It's going to cause a huge surplus in the amount of money. Money is going to be more readily available. It's going to be easier for banks to borrow money from the Fed. We'll talk more about that again tomorrow. But that's how banks get money. Banks borrow money from the Fed, or they borrow from other private banks, or they borrow from you, right? Because you lend money to the banks if you put money in your savings account. But that's the idea. If money supply increases, it's going to cause a surplus in the amount of money, right? So money's more readily available. It's easier to get. If money is easier to get, rates are going to begin to go down, right? If banks can get money from the Fed cheaper, right, banks can lend to you cheaper and still make those same profit margins. So interest rates will begin to fall. And this is so important for the rest of Uniform. We're going to do this a lot. And you can't miss the boat here, all right? So if money supply increases, again, read your graph, notice that interest rates have to fall. And if interest rates fall, we know what happens. We've already dealt with this for a long time, right? Since Unit 3, which isn't that long ago, but, investment increases, right? Investment. Whenever you guys see the word interest rates, when I talk about aggregate demand, the only thing I talked about that would influence investment was really interest rates. If interest rates go down, investment will have to increase. In other words, businesses, that's what investment is, businesses are going to take out more loans. Businesses are going to take out more loans because the cost of borrowing is less, right? They don't have to pay off, huge rates on those loans, right? So they're going to be more likely to take out loans. Also, consumers are going to be more likely to take out loans to buy cars and houses and other things like that, and boats and other expensive things. So it really does affect investment and consumer spending, but really we're just going to be focused on investment, okay? But regardless, if investment increases or consumer spending increases, that's obviously going to increase aggregate demand. And then if aggregate demand increases, think about your graph, right? Unemployment will go down. Price level will go up. We'll have inflation, right? But output will increase and unemployment will go down, right? So this is the idea of expansionary monetary policy. We're going to do this, right, if we're in a recessionary gap. We're going to try to reduce rates by increasing the money supply, and we'll talk about how the Fed does that tomorrow, right? The end goal is to increase AD to obviously reduce unemployment, right? And then obviously if we decrease the money supply, it's going to raise rates because it's going to cause a shortage of money, right? The money demand is going to be greater than money supply at 5%. And then it's going to make more, money tougher to get, right? Banks are going to have to pay higher rates to borrow from the Fed. If they got to pay higher rates in order to get some sort of rate of return by lending to you, right, they're going to have to charge you higher rates, again, to keep those same profit margins, which is going to result in higher interest rates for you and businesses. So when money supply decreases, and you just got to read your graph, right? You can see it on the graph that interest rates are going to have to go up. And if interest rates go up, investment's going to go down. Consumer spending would also go down as well. And that's going to decrease aggregate demand, which obviously would decrease price level, right? So the time to do this would be when we're in an inflationary gap, and inflation's the issue. This would be contractionary monetary policy. But we're going to cause unemployment to occur, and we're also going to decrease GDP, right? But this is contractionary, right? This is if the economy is overheating and we want to slow it down, This would be the idea of contractionary policy, reducing aggregate demand by reducing the money supply. All right, so people, I want to take you over to the Elmo. I want to show you guys what your problem set's going to look like, sort of, right? Like I can't see you guys graph, but I gave you questions that require you to graph, right, in order to answer the questions. So I'm excited, people. All right, so let me give you a scenario here. Let's say price level goes up. Price level goes up, right? That's like the scenario here. Is price level goes up, right, in the economy for whatever reason, right? Whatever caused it, maybe stagflation occurred, right? Or maybe it was demand pull inflation, right? So aggregate demand already has increased, right? What's going to happen here? Well, we're always going to start in the money market, right? Again, this is the money market, right? And people, if you're actually required to draw graphs, right, and FRQs on the AP test, make sure you label your graph, right? Money market, okay? We know that money supply is fixed. We know that money demand is downward sloping. And I'm just going to label this like QME, and I'm going to label this like IRE, right? Just label it something. Unless it states otherwise. If it states otherwise, you're going to label whatever it tells you to do, okay? So if price level goes up, right, we know that affects money demand, right? And we know that money demand has to increase. People are going to need more money in order to make everyday transactions if prices go up in the economy, all right? So what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to ask you what happens to either money supply or money demand, right? So money demand is going to increase, right? What's going to happen is interest rates are going to go up. And again, you just find where the new X marks a spot, right? You find the new point where MD1 intersects MS. Interest rates go up, and then obviously the quantity of money does not change. It will never change unless the Fed changes it. All right, so the quantity of money will stay the same, but rates will increase. And then if rates go up, I draw the second graph. It's called investment demand. It's called investment demand. And is it on the AP test? Most likely not, but potentially, right? But you guys already know this graph. You already know it, right? I just had interest rates on the vertical. I just had the quantity of investment, the amount of, the amount of that businesses want to invest, the amount of loans that businesses want to take out, right? Is basically what's going on there. And this is downward sloping, right? Obviously at high rates, right, businesses don't want to take out a lot of loans. And obviously at low rates, right, businesses want to take out a ton of loans, right? So what I usually do is, since interest rates are the same, right, the same vertical, I start off at point A, right, and then rates go up. So we're going to have movement from right to left along our investment demand curve, and investment goes down, right? So I'm going to put like Q1 and Q2, right? Just label it something is the idea. So that you guys already know that. You don't need a graph, but sometimes like you might be required to draw this graph, right? So just better practice. Better safe than sorry, right? And some students don't understand investment, right? So maybe this graph will help you out. But that's the idea. When rates go up, investment goes down. Businesses are going to be less likely to take out loans and use those loans to go out and buy capital goods, remember, right? Like machines, tools, and equipment. Now, don't make this mistake. A lot of students make a mistake here, right? And the graph actually sometimes may cause more issues, right? Because when they look at the graph, we're moving up the graph. So some students would be like, oh, investment increases, investment goes up. No, don't do that, right? Label it, and you'll see that investment decreases, right, if interest rates go up. And then last but not least, right, we got to draw, well, not last but not least, because we're doing our Phillips curve as well. We got our ADS model. Now, we don't have to draw LRAS, right? LRAS is used to show the state of the economy, right? All we're simply trying to do is what happens to AD, right? We know that if investment increases, right, aggregate demand has to increase. Businesses are taking on more loans. They're going to use more loans to buy more goods. They're going to buy more goods. They're going to demand more goods. So aggregate demand is going to increase, and then you just read your graph, right? We know that output's going to increase. We know that price level is going to increase, and since output increases, unemployment would have to fall, and then real wages would decrease, right? Other macro measures that might be a review today, right? Since I haven't seen you guys in a while. And then again, sometimes you're asked to draw the Phillips curve instead, right? And you have to answer questions based on the Phillips curve. Again, we don't really have to draw LRPC here because it's irrelevant. We don't need it for anything, right? We don't need to know the state of the economy right now. I want to know what's going to happen to the Phillips curve or what's going to happen to the ADS model. The Phillips curve, right? Whenever AD changes, we know that it causes movement along the short-run Phillips curve. If aggregate supply changes, it causes a shift in SRPC. So today, right, we're only going to be changing AD because we're only changing investment. We're not changing anything else, right? Like the price of resources or anything like that. So when AD changes, again, all that's going to happen today in your Phillips curve is going to cause movement along your Phillips curve. So again, ask yourself, what happens? What happens to inflation? Inflation increases. Unemployment decreases because output increases. So then draw it over here. And this is what I was talking about with the arrows, with the Phillips curve, right? If inflation increases, draw that. And then unemployment decreases. Draw that, right? It's going to cause movement from right to left along your short-run Phillips curve is the idea, okay? Movement from right to left along your Phillips curve. That's generally how it's written. Let's do one last one. I'll do it really quick. I'll do it really, really quick here, all right? Let's say incomes decrease, right? Incomes decrease. Again, how's that going to affect the money market, right? People are going to buy less goods because they have less money, right? Generally, people, when they have less money, they buy less goods because most goods are normal goods, right? So what's going to happen is rates are going to go down, and don't be lazy like me. I'm just doing it for time's sake here, right? Interest rates are going to go down, so if interest rates go down, right? And again, you can do like a side-by-side graph here. It's pretty neat, right? If interest rates go down, investment's going to increase, right? And wait, hold on. Did I just mess up here? Oh, people, I messed up on the last one. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing is that? Did you guys catch that? People, did you guys catch that? I said investment increases in that, but I clearly said investment decreases here, right? Oh my gosh, right? Aggregate demand is going to fall. We're going to have movement from left to right along our Phillips curve. Oh my gosh, none of you guys corrected me on that? Unbelievable scenes, right? I hope you guys didn't take notes on that. Okay, anyway. All right, so investment's going to increase, right? If investment increases here, right, we know that aggregate demand is going to increase. If aggregate demand increases, we know that price level is going to go up, and unemployment is going to decrease. Oh my gosh, Mr. Moore, you are making mistakes like crazy. All right, so that's what you guys are going to do today, but everything's all obviously in writing. You just have to answer, right? What happens to the money supply? Does it increase or decrease, right? What happens to interest rates? Does it increase or decrease? What happens to the quantity of money? Does it increase or decrease? What happens to AD? Does it increase or decrease? And then does it cause movement to the right or left along the Phillips curve? And then like answer macro measures is the idea. But I think we're all good to go, people. That is it. I'll see you guys in Google Meet. I'll post the problem set. Take a break if you need to, but I'll be taking attendance at 11:50.